All right, thank you. I'll be short. Good afternoon, Council and Mayor Dyer. I am Vicki Elaine Felder, and I reside at 3501 Rogers Drive in beautiful Washington Shores that has been in existence since 1946. I'm here addressing you, the Mayor and Board of City Commissioners, because I have some concerns regarding the existence of a land trust in our community located at Tampa Avenue and Orange Center. I am concerned because I do not understand why there is a need for a land trust in a community whose residents own the land and the mortar, the building which sits on the land. We don't need a caretaker for our land. We're not sharecroppers sharing property for goods. Years ago, the late Commissioner Napoleon Ford championed the rebuilding of Orlando's historic African-American communities due to segregation because they were often passed over during the city's booming mid-century growth. Let it be known that we are not in opposition of growth. Growth is what makes us viable and useful. And no city is any stronger than its weakest neighborhood, so our fight is not with the growth. Ford in the past successfully advocated for local banks to provide mortgages to working families, construction of new affordable housing, and community centers to anchor our historic neighborhoods. However, the fight is with you and your plan to implement land trust without support or approval from our greater communities. This, Mr. Mayor and Board of Commissioners, is an extreme miscarriage of justice. It is unfair and it is wrong. We are in opposition to a land trust in our community, and I would like for you to give consideration to table this vote pending future discussions. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the time.
Thank you, Dr. Carl Malsby, and then Dana Gray, and then Elisa Garland.
To the council, thank you for acknowledging that the subject Orange Center Boulevard area of land needs housing and improvements. However, the purchasing and sale agreement submitted by Hannibal Square Community Land Trust, Inc. falls short of being in the best interest of the Southwest Central Orlando community, which includes Clear Lake Cove, Lake Sunset, Luola Terrace, Paramore, and Washington Shores. Home ownership is for many Americans the cornerstone of wealth. Included in that ownership is the right to the land. Hence the history of the land deed relationship. The Hannibal Square proposal would deny future homeowners this right and protection. If needed, one can farm land. What does a building grow? Mold. Moreover, as referenced to in the proposal, the community land trust in other areas has not worked in the best interest of Black Americans. In addition to denying dwelling owners land rights, CLT's community land trusts have been a source of racial profiling or a retro-urban renewal, which I can attest to from my experiences of living at 808 South Division Street in Griffin Park during the 60s, was Black removal. The Hannibal Plan is at best a 21st century version of sharecropping, which turned out to be a disenfranchisement of those persons reduced to non-ownership of the land where they lived. Furthermore, the Hannibal CLT makes a mockery of the original concept of the Community Land Trust, which was for educational and cultural integrity of a community, specifically the Native Americans, to protect further encroachment of their property by white Americans. Secondly, given that the number of pre-building demolition units for the subject land was approximately 111, 116, of which most residents would fall into the lower income bracket as outlined in the Hannibal plan, but only 12 of those units would be made available to these residents, assuming they applied and qualified. This is insufficient to mitigate both the units and the human resource losses. The residual impact would be negative on Jones High School student enrollment, which for the last 135 years plus has functioned as a stabilizing force in the Southwest Central Orlando community. Thirdly, nowhere in this plan are there provisions for ensuring that the persons displaced by the demolition of the old buildings have priority to purchase of the new units. Therefore, I encourage you to delay your decision, but if you feel that you must vote, I urge you to vote no on the Hannibal Square Community Land Trust. It is time to give the community more time to have input and into what is going to be the best route for all concerned moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana Gray, Alicia Garland, Deborah Settles. And if you'd state your name and address for us.
Hi, my name is Dana Gray. I live at 1052 Yellow Rose Drive. I work as a registered nurse in Orlando Regional Medical Center. Fun fact, I was actually born there. I own property in the amazing neighborhood Brock Lake. It's filled with an immense amount of history as well as a sense of community. Key phrase, a sense of community. I come here not only as an ambassador, but also a voice for my generation, the millennials. I'm sure many in this room have millennial children, and my generation can be very boisterous on social media and other social outlets. We can live somewhere for 2 years and barely know the person living 2 doors down from us. But when it comes to our home and where we grew up, you know your neighbors, you know your community leaders, different families, their kids, and they know yours. This is why preservation of this neighborhood is imperative to us and our community. The sense of community and belonging to a neighborhood with deep roots and history is something my generation desperately needs. As millennials, we are all for progress and for economic development. As I am here speaking on behalf of the millennial voice of the neighborhood in our community, we only ask to be included when decisions and changes in the landscape of our community are made. With our community's input, we feel that without our community's input, we feel that we don't matter. We ask today that you allow us the opportunity to review the proposals and ask questions as to what's being proposed. Commissioner Hill, I saw the video clip that went viral on you speaking concerning the hiring of qualified Black developers, not subcontractors to work on projects in the city. I was amazed by the pushback that you received that someone would take what happened 20 years ago to make a case for Black professionals today. Question, where were the qualified Black developers from our community who submitted proposals for this project? How did the selection committee score the proposals? How do we know what is being proposed today is the best interest of our historic neighborhood? Again, as a millennial, I think it's important that we have responsible growth in our community as well as simultaneously build Black wealth within our community. We must hire and invest in qualified Black developers and business from our community if we are really going to change the economic landscape of our communities. Mayor Dyer and Commissioners, I ask that you postpone this vote today and allow us an opportunity to review the proposals that were submitted and garner a better understanding of a land trust and how that would impact our community long after you have all left this office. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia Garland. Deborah Settles, Stella Lewis.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer and City Council members. My name is Alicia Garland, and I reside at 2213 Lake Sunset Drive. I reside in District 5, merely blocks from the property in question. I belong to a family with a long legacy in Orlando, and unfortunately, our family has been victimized by property being taken, yes, taken, in 2 instances in this city. My great-grandparents lost 4 of their children when they were burned out of their homes and property subsequently taken. And then also, my grandfather and his siblings were unfortunate recipients of eminent domain proceedings in our property on Washington Street in Orlando. So prayerfully, you can understand how I cannot turn a blind eye to what appears to be yet another attempt to exploit our community. Mayor Dyer, during your campaign for mayor, you personally knocked on my door and asked that my sons come and get me when you were soliciting votes for mayor. During our brief conversation, you assured me that you would be representing the interests of all, yes, all of our residents here in Orlando. Well, sir, you, along with these honorable commissioners, have indeed been elected to assure that our interests and our land, yes, as residents and taxpayers, we do have a vested interest in the city-owned land that you are the administrators of. And so being, we are asking that you not sell the land without our notice and input in a manner that would be detrimental to our community. While we appreciate and encourage beautification and redevelopment of our neighborhood, we are in strong opposition to the land trust because it denies the growth of soul and complete, meaning both land and dwelling, which encourages independent ownership, the way that already exists in our community. There are other programs that assist in qualifying for complete land home ownership. I respectfully request that a workshop or community meeting be held with the residents of our community prior to you making your decision and placing the matter up for vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah Settles, Stella Lewis, Rich Black.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Richardson Settles, and I reside at 2132 Piedmont Street, Orlando, Florida, 32805. And my family has owned property in the Bunch Manor, Orlando, Clear Lake Cove community since 1962. My father fought for equality and fair housing for the city of Orlando for 27 years with the Human Relations Department, and it's so befitting that I'm here today with questions about the proposed land sale on Orange Center Boulevard on the south side, west of Tampa, to a community land trust. I know that the land trust selling points are affordable housing and ownership. My question to the council and to the CLT is what else is in place to sustain affordability and gentrification-induced displacement? For example, can a CLT protect properties in our communities if reassessed at higher prices, which leads to higher taxes? The neighborhood continues to experience buyers and sellers. There are also investors like buzzards who are seeking to purchase properties within the community and District 6. I'm referring to Washington Shores area. We're also receiving calls and letters consistently like never before asking if we want to sell our homes. These types of practices, in my opinion, will continue to limit affordable living in our communities despite the proposed land trust. Who would be responsible for paying taxes, the trust or lessee? These are questions that I have. If the lessee, as property values are reassessed throughout the community, how would this affect their stability? If it's the trust paying the taxes, what will be their responsibility to the increase, or will they be exempt? If no exemption, how would affordability be maintained within the community? If taxes are not assessed on the land developed by the trust, does this reduce services in our community, such as visibility from OPD, which is already limited? And finally, stability never stays the same for people of color, as this city and municipalities throughout the country have skillfully formulated ways of displacing us from our communities. While intact, we thrived economically with various businesses. We're now at a point of change again, and while we embrace it, homeowners that have established this community and made it what it is also want economic empowerment moving forward. We do not want a plethora of outside entities coming into our neighborhoods and taking their wealth back to their communities. We want to be given the opportunity to own some shops and stores, along with the financial assistance, if necessary, that has been afforded to others to complete their projects in our community. And the question remains, how long will affordability be contained for our communities despite efforts to convince us that a CLT will aid us in this effort? Thank you.
Thank you. Stella Lewis, Rich Black, Macy Meissen.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, and to all the commissioners. I stand before you today with my name being Stella M. Lewis. I am the president of the Washington Shores Neighborhood Association, which is in District 6. I currently reside at 843 Woodland Boulevard, Orlando, Florida, 32805. I rise today to address the recommendation for the Hannibal Square Land Trust to purchase the property located at the corner of Tampa Avenue and Orange Center Boulevard. I don't know if you realize this or not, but there are many residents in District 6 and District 5 that have no idea as to what's going on with the project on Orange Center Boulevard. Even though the location is surrounded by District 5, the two sides of Orange Center Boulevard is District 6. So there's somewhat confusion in our community as to what district it is in. We would like to say for the record that the residents are not in opposition to the development and growth. We look forward to that. But we are, however, concerned when some of the elected officials find it necessary to speak for the residents. We are not having our voices heard. We come to meetings, you come out to our community with community meetings. However, the suggestions that the residents make aren't necessarily fulfilled by what the representatives from the city of Orlando has come into our community to tell us. For example, land trust. We were not familiar with what land trust is, but since it has come to our attention, we find out that when you buy the housing, the townhouse, whatever it might be, you buy just the building. The land is then leased for 99 years. So if I, as a home buyer, decide to sell my house, I can only sell my house, but then I also have to take into consideration the leasing company that owns the land. If I want to build a fence on my property, I would have to go to the leasing company to say, can I build a fence? If I wanted to sell my house, how many people are going to buy a house to call their own, and when they have to do something, such as build a fence or even put in a sprinkling system, I would have to go to the leasing company to say, can I do this? That's ridiculous. Yes, you guys have come forward with affordable housing, but I don't think you've looked at the total picture on how it's going to affect us as individuals. As president of the Washington Shores Neighborhood Association, the residents and voters of Washington Shores have asked me to remind the city and as elected officials that they are elected by the people to serve in the best interest of the people and at the pleasure of the people. So we're here today to let you know, and we have a group of individuals, as you can see, from the Washington Shores area. There must be 30 people here, because we're really serious about coming down to let you know how we feel. We want the growth. We want the affordable housings. We in Orlando are at the bottom of the scale as it relates to affordable housing. So yes, we want affordable housing. The residents, we want to understand why the city prefers land trust over the conventional way to purchase. You purchase a house and the land that the house is built on. Please advise us on the method of scoring that was used in the selection of the developer, as well as the number of African Americans that sat on the selection committee. I am very pleased to know that Derek Wallace's company is part of the Hannibal Square developer. So we have no problem with that. All we're here to say is we want to have affordable housing. We want it to be in our area, growth, all the wonderful things, but we want to be able to own the land. Yes?
You're at 5,
That's
so
my,
wrap it up.
but the others haven't taken all their time. So, and,
Doesn't work that way.
huh? What?
Nah, it doesn't work that way.
Beg your pardon?
It doesn't work that way.
Oh. Well, I tried.
That was a good try, man.
Okay, I'll discontinue my speech. And I just want to say, in closing, that there is an African proverb that says, "What you do for me without me, you do against me." Thank you so much. I appreciate all your time and energy.
Rich Black, Mayseem Isom, Michael Norman.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Rich Black. I reside at 2201 Lake Sunset Drive, Orlando, Florida. I rise today to speak to you on behalf of our constituents in Lake Sunset, Loyola Terrace area. They're very concerned about the mindset of owning a portion of your land if you're talking about taking people out of poverty. I know that we have plans put together with the city with first down home buyers, funding and things of that nature. And their concern is if you have a home and you don't own the home, once you get ready to move, you lose some of this equity, which is your investment. They've also said to me is that, Rich Black, we have a problem in Orlando because we have cousins and families who are about to be displaced. If we're building in the area where these people are about to be displaced, have we thought about smart density in building, or will these people be moved to Winter Garden, Eustis, or Tangelo? So we're really concerned about where we're going and the decision that we're making. Before I did speak with the commissioner, and I used this, your term, Mayor Dyer, when you said most times the commissioner and I, we normally agree. Most times the commissioner and I, we normally agree. But as of about 2 weeks ago, as Patty Sheehan said, we have a crisis now. And the crisis is that people are about to be displaced. And we need to make sure as we move forward that we're building smart density to accommodate that. The townhomes are fun. I looked up on what she had, and she says that Hannibal Square had 58 townhomes. Is that correct? 30 townhomes? What was that was on the screen for the, okay. 58 and 28 rental units?
Sit down and come back when you know it's right, Rich.
Okay, all right, and Sealy had 95 townhomes and 85 rentals, is that correct? How many did Sealy have?
They had about 10, I think. 10 townhomes.
10 townhomes, and I didn't see it on the
And
screen.
they
but-
needed $3 million.
Okay, even with the $3 million, I know that when we worked with Lyft, We accommodated them. We are in a crisis, and I think that we have to rethink how we're moving forward. Housing is very important, and those people are about to be displaced in that community. We would hate for them to have to leave from the community. If we have the housing, I think we could accommodate them. Okay?
Can you do me a favor? Will you please, please, please go over to Orlando Housing Authority with that same passion? Because the
We
city of
will.
Orlando isn't displacing anyone.
No,
It is
we're not saying,
Orlando
we're
Housing
not,
Authority.
we're
They
not.
need to make sure
I know
with their
Vivian Bryant
displacement,
very
they
well.
put affordable housing.
I know
in place.
Vivian Bryant very
Thank you.
well.
All
And
right.
I'm saying, as I said to you, I said, we have a crisis when you're looking at
Yeah, we do.
all of these housing developments. These people are about to be displaced. I am told, and even as a landowner and one who owns rental properties, these vouchers are not going to be accepted at many of these places. I've also researched and checked with banks. They said it's easier to get a car than to get a house. It's easier to get rental property than it is to qualify for a home. So if you're going to place them somewhere, the best place to place them is probably in an apartment. So although I did agree initially, Commissioner, when we started this conversation, home ownership is the way.
Well, actually, you led the homeownership drive.
I did. But
Okay.
2 weeks ago, as it blindsided you, it blindsided all of us, that there is a problem now with housing, and we need to be able to accommodate that as we move forward.
Macine Isom. Coming. And then Michael Norman. Shirley Bradley.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dahlia, Commissioners. My name is Macine Isom. I reside at 912 Whitten Boulevard, Orlando, Florida, District 6. I reside in Orlando as a resident for 75 years and currently reside in the historical Washington Shores community. I thought we would have an opportunity to discuss some of our concerns at the workshop today, but it is apparent that it isn't happening. I am concerned as the sale of the land located at the corner of Tampa Avenue and Orange Center to Hannibal Square Land Trust. While I am not in the position I'm not in opposition of growth in our community, I'm concerned when things are done without our input or knowledge. While many says that there were community meetings concerning this project, I have not heard any in the community speak of a land trust component tied to this potential sale. I want you to know people call me and give me information about what's going on, so that's why I said I hadn't heard anything. I have been advised through communication with the city that all proposals that were submitted had a land trust component tied to them. I have since discovered that this is not true. I have also discovered that while we are a city of diversity, all 6 staff members who served on this selection committee over in a historical black neighborhood were non-African Americans. This concerns me as I feel our community interest was not fully incorporated in the decision-making. The driving force to take this vote is money. I am told Hannibal Square has the money to pay for the land. Is this to say that other proposals did not have funding toward the purchase of the land? I have not heard from anyone as it relates to a long and short-term impact on this decision on our community schools. I have heard just today that Derek Wallace has the contract. I don't know if any of you all have heard about Jones High School. It's falling apart. Derek Wallace had that contract. I quote my representative, Cat Gordon, that school might have to be torn down because of the poor condition it's in. I voted for you for the years that I believe you are concerned about the things that affect me and my community. I want to leave today to feel that we have not been tricked or deceived by the long-term support of you and your relationship. I ask on behalf of my neighbors and that this vote be postponed until our community have a better understanding of the project and review all proposals as it relates to the scoring and selection of developers. The other thing I have to say that comes from my heart today, I was in 6th grade at Holden Street. They said we will all be on the other side of OBT. And that's where we are today, except Pamo. As a outreach worker for Meals on Wheels, when I came back here in July to see how this whole community has been taken apart, moving across OBT, now you're gonna take the west side of Orlando. I won't be here when you do it, but I'm fighting for my grandchildren and the millennials that's coming behind me. They said it, none of y'all probably was born when they said it. They want us on the other side of OBT. We have land out there. You have people coming in now, building skyscrapers all over. So I'm looking at the property that I own in Wooden Boulevard and 3249 Mahalia Place. Are they gonna take that one day? Because you don't have people like me who have the love for my community. And I'm standing here today, commissioners and the mayor, I'm asking you to give us a fair chance. Let us speak. Let us try to get our money together, not to have a land trust, not to own, let us own the property. Because someone spoke about sharecropping. I understand that, because it was taken from my grandparents. My grandparents was the Indians of this country, Cherokee Indians. They were moved out of their land. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Michael Norman, and then Shirley, and Tracy Anderson.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. At the risk of becoming and being redundant, I just rise at this moment as a new pastor in the Orlando area. I do reside in the city of Apopka, but our pastor and my work is in the city of Orlando, where a lot of our parishioners are members of District 5 and 6, and of course, the greater Orlando area. I just rise to again remind you of the challenge that and the obligation that lies before you to be representative of the people that you lead. In the words of the good minister who opened up with a fabulous prayer, to remind us that you and we are constituents and custodians of this city, of the will of the people. I want to remind you and encourage you to continue to hear the voices of your people. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley?
Good afternoon to all the members, the mayor, and all the members of City Council. I've been here several times talking about the Orange Center Boulevard land that is adjacent to the neighborhood in which I live, which is Clear Lake, Bunch Manor, Orlando. I first came when the apartment still stood there, and I ask you very sincerely to do something about those apartments, because Mrs. Pledge always said people were throwing garbage in her yard because she lived adjacent to the fence. So I'm here. I'm sorry, I didn't give my address. My address is 2127 Monte Carlo Trail, Orlando, and I reside in the Clear Lake Bunch Manor, Orlando community. Well, I'm here today. I'm thankful. I came to thank you all for doing something about that property. You finally cleared it off, and I don't know whether the demolisher put grass seeds down, but the land looks good. The grass just grew like a green carpet. I like that.
Thank you, Shirley. I thought
Yes.
that was a positive thing for the neighborhood. That's the first person I've heard say that the whole
I
time.
don't know, and when he demolished the land, he didn't make a lot of smoke.
That's
He
right.
didn't make a lot of dust. He just did what he needed to do. He wet the property down, and the neighbors didn't complain. I asked my neighbors who live right adjacent to the demolition area, Did they have any problems? They said no, just one day we had a lot of dust flying. So I'm not here to knock the land developer or whoever is going to build the new structures. I'm just thankful that Mrs. Pledge can now rest in peace, that something is going to be done, and I hope that you put the wall between the residents. I don't know if it's going to be a wall, because I hate the word wall anymore since we're hearing so much about a wall. But whatever the structure, I'm going to call it a structure, between the houses on Gore Street and the development that you're going to put on Orange Center Boulevard. I hope that you will put some decent houses, because I did attend those meetings in July and the one in August. And we recommended from those meetings that we have home ownership. I heard houses, and I heard the garage is going to be in the back of the townhouses so that people can enter and leave in an appropriate manner. I like that. We talked about having commercial development. I like that. And I think the people who were at the meeting, those were the suggestions. And I thank the city for incorporating them with whoever the developer will be, whether it be Hannibal Square or whoever you vote on. But I'd like to thank you very deeply from the bottom of my heart that now Mrs. Pledge is going to be happy. And you do something, and I heard her grandson still lives in her home, and we need the land and the homes and the apartments and whatever you decide to put there. And use our suggestions from all these people that have spoken before me to do the right thing by all of us, because our time is limited here, but our home is our biggest possession that we will ever have. So thank you very much. And that's all I have to say. And I was one more thing. I was very glad when I saw in the paper Friday, I brought the article, that you are going to pursue doing something positive for that piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Anderson, Cynthia Harris, Luana Gelzer.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking on behalf of Cynthia Harris, although I do echo her sentiments. I, Cynthia Harris, currently serve as the president of the Greater Malibu Groves Neighborhood Association, and I am opposed to this land trust agreement. Gentrification and displacement seems to be an ongoing theme for the city of Orlando. As a result, this council has been instrumental in displacing predominantly African American historic community in Paramore, reducing opportunities for wealth creation and accumulation among thousands of middle and lower class people, threatening the Black community's political representation in city government, as well as its social, cultural, and economic capital. It is unconscionable that a single generation of African Americans who shared this neighborhood's population has fallen from 80% to 20%. Home ownership, creating a diverse problem in our area. Paramore shaped nearly early on the racist policies that pushed the families of color into a neighborhood or limited their access for economic opportunity. However, African American members of the community responded by building powerful businesses and institutions. Now those buildings and institutions have been historically destroyed by this council, forcing out residents with surging rents, taxes, eroding a sense of community in this district. We know that where we live determines how we live. Location is a strong deterrent for social, physical, and economic well-being than any other metric. Now the council has extended its reach to the African American communities outside Paramore. Once again, this council continues to execute detrimental erosion in the African American communities by placing such things as homeless shelters and other entities that have no value to our community. This is a callous and most malicious act that this council has done to silence and suppress the African American communities within the confines of the city of Orlando. Owning land is a reliable way to grow long-term wealth. It lets us choose to build what we want, where we want, including affordable housing and commercial space. Owning increases access to tax saving and equity that can be transferred to future generations. Why does the council want to continue to tighten the noose around our necks like a captured slave and not allow us affordable housing and business on our terms? Ownership permanently roots us in the communities, ensuring long-term location security to secure consistent access to nearby services and meaningful social networks. Plus, communities of owners take better care of their properties and public spaces like schools and parks. What would you think? We wouldn't want to own our own business in the land it sits on? Why is it that when it comes to African American communities, you believe you know what's best for us? This council continues to treat us like we're 5-year-old children. We cannot consistently continue to believe that you know how to tell grown people how to live. If the African American community came to College Park, Baldwin Park, the Milton District, Union Park, or Nakusi as a land trust to redecorate your home the way we would like to see it, how would we believe you would maintain it? We would not have any parts of it. You would fight us until the last man and woman were standing. This council is at once again attempting to play our parents in this land trust deal that should be owned by the people of this community, not outsiders. We have seen gentrification in Winter Park's Hannibal Square, and everything in that that was historically African American is no longer preserved. Which is why we don't want this. We have to watch our council destroy everything that reflects our rich history, even that in Paramore, visually erasing us from the history books. Now you want to take the only thing that we have. Sorry about that.
So wrap it up if you will.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish it this way. It's important that we have a say in what goes on in our community, and I don't believe that the people that you are putting in place to do these things have our interests at heart. We would like a better opportunity. We want to know what's going on. We want to be able to express ourselves and shape what our futures look like, because we're trying to leave something for our children too.
Lawana Gelzer.
Lawana Gelzer, 7674 St. Stephen's Court, Orlando, zip 32835. A proud day to see residents rise up and say something that some of us have been saying for quite some time. Why now? We talked about historically protected federal projects. Tinker Field is no longer here. Bob Carr, our wetlands off of John Young. You said, what do this have to do with what's going on Orange Center? There's a pattern here when it comes to our communities, especially communities of color. You do not understand how important it is. I've lived through the gentrification of Paramore. I might not live there, but I moved there in 1971, and we've watched how people have been moved. The last deal the city of Orlando did that was so great on February 18th was that there was 3 nonprofits that are going to do land trust, bought 83 properties from Phil Cowhurst, who was the slumlord of Paramore. 83 properties, and they came to the city. But what people don't understand was, I was concerned, why would a group of nonprofits pay $8 million for some property? Some people say 6, but everybody else say 8. And I added up the value of all those properties, and it was only $2 million. But because of speculation, I added 50% more, $3 million. Why would someone pay $8 million, $5 million over the price and value of 83 properties in Paramore? Speculation, but it was for affordable houses. But when we told you that the rent had already been increased, you still gave this group of individuals money to rehab those units. If you could pay $5 million above the property value of something, why we gotta give you some money to rehab it? That's not something good. That's not affordable housing. Somebody getting some money on the back end here. That's bad business. And I say that to say it's bad business because several people have echoed how I've been feeling for years. You don't know what's best for us. You know what's best for your pocketbook. And your pocketbook is as far as campaign contribution, what recognitions you might get. But what this deal says to everybody that owns property around, check to see what will happen to your property value once this is built. And why do you put land trusts in communities of color? It's to control the land. It's to control what goes on in the community. It's to strip you of something that we will never get back. At the turn of the century of 1900s, more African Americans own more land than we will ever own again. So why would we want to give that up today? It's not building wealth. It's holding us down. It's restricting. It's not developing. It's not growth. It's restricting the community. It's saying, I will have my hands here, but I'll say it's about affordability. Well, I have watched and I've heard the lies after lies, the misinformation, whatever you want to call. City View, for the people that was displaced for Paramore, gonna come back. Go look at City View. Who lives there? It don't be the people that was, it's not the people that left. We talk about, I can talk about even the apartments on Orange Center. Lift Orlando. What I was upset about returning from Selma 50th anniversary was they bought the property from the federal government, HUD, and with a non-bidding contract sold it directly to Lyft. That's not good business. You didn't give anybody else an opportunity to do anything. So once again, I sat in on that meeting, and I don't have a problem with growth. I have a problem with misinformation and exploitation of a community. And if you strip them of the ownership of the land, you're restricting them to not being able to gain wealth. Housing, ownership, that's building wealth. How much more we need to give this city council? How much more? Or what are you getting on the back end? Because I can go on list after list of things that you've done in the best interest of affordable housing. But I'm following the dollars, and the dollars is saying something else. What are you getting in return?
Okay, wrap it up.
What are you getting in return? Thank you.
Okay, I heard a lot of information, and it's pretty clear to me that a lot of people do have a lot of misinformation. We went into this thinking we're doing some pretty good stuff here, eradicating the blight that was there over the last couple times. Shirley's the only one that appreciates that, I see. And we did community meetings to try to get the community's input on, do we want to have all apartments? Do we want to have home ownership? As I understand the meetings, and Commissioner Hill, you were there for those meetings, and as Brooke laid out, that it was the desire of the community that we have infill development that had affordable housing models that weren't all the same, that were some apartments, but there was also an increase in home ownership opportunities. And I've heard a lot of discussion about gentrification and affordability. If we do market rate housing, and we're going to do some market rate housing, that's what leads actually to gentrification. Land trust, and I'm sorry maybe we haven't conveyed enough information on what land trusts actually are, but it's a mechanism, a means to make homes more affordable. And it's also a mechanism that allows somebody, let's say the market rate value of a home with the land would be, say, $150,000, and the land is $50,000. They can buy that home for $100,000, and there's some criteria on what they can then sell it for, but they accrue home ownership instead of just paying rent, and in some cases, they can buy that home for cheaper than they can pay rent for a similar size apartment. So it's a great deal. It is true ownership. It's no different, quite honestly, than buying a condominium where you don't own the land under the condominium. So we went into this trying to hit those goals, some single-family housing that's also affordable, that doesn't lead to gentrification, that also has some apartments. And
The retail.
Rich, your argument's adverse to that. You want all apartments, right? Well, the land's only so big, so we can only do so much for this particular piece. And I can tell you that we are well-intended here. Maybe we need to get more information out about exactly what a land trust does, but it's not an evil tool. You actually have land ownership, but it makes it more affordable, and it keeps it affordable.